All right, now that we have you all in a state of contemplation, let's pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. St. John Paul the Great, pray for us in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Just a little disclaimer as we get started. I'm going to kind of stay put here. I'm not going to move around too much. That's because I found out the day before I came here to Seek, I found out from the doctor I tore my meniscus from a basketball game this past weekend. And yeah, so I already know what you're thinking, especially those of you student athletes. You're thinking, but Jason, did you win the game? Okay. And oh yeah, we won the game. Yep, yeah, thank you. So we whooped those high school boys pretty good. So that was nice. So, but it's a blessing to see y'all today. I'm especially grateful just to focus, to have this opportunity to focus on this topic of gender, because if you're like me, this topic kind of hits close to home. Because if you're like me, you got friends. If you're like me, you actually have family members who identify as part of the trans community, and you wrestle with this. You wonder, okay, like am I supposed to use their preferred pronoun, or are we not supposed to do that? Because I heard if you don't kind of affirm their identity, then they're more likely to commit suicide, and I wouldn't want to do that. And we wrestle with this. Unfortunately, for a lot of Catholics, we're given one of two responses, like either to dismiss it or just to debate it, right? Oh, this non-binary, gender fluid, trans woman nonsense. You're either XX or XY, that's all there is to it. But what if you were on the receiving end of that? You'd feel attacked, you'd feel kind of invisible, you'd kind of assume, okay, well, there's probably really no room for me in the church to navigate these tough questions on gender. Or you might even wonder, well, what if I experience gender dysphoria? Like, what does God think about me? And I think if we start anywhere, we got to start there. What he thinks about you? Clear as day. It's clear in the Old Testament, and it says this. It says, God, for you love all things that exist, and you loathe or hate none of the things that you've made. For you would not have made anything if you had hated it. And so these individuals deserve our love and truth, but they also deserve, I think, our understanding. I got an email from one of them, a Catholic guy who's always wrestled with gender dysphoria. And here's what he emailed to me. What it was like growing up with this. He said, school dances were hell. Holidays were awful. Swimming was a weird dysphoric torture, but I learned to cope, to be strong, to be normal. Coupling all of this with being autistic and not knowing that until I was 31, you can imagine how much of a freak I felt like growing up. I never felt like I belonged anywhere, ever. Look, I don't want to have surgery. I don't want to take hormones. I know that both of these will only present new problems. However, being a man is just not fulfilling or authentic. I don't feel like I'm truly one of the guys. It feels like I'm mimicking the gorillas, so they don't realize I'm not part of their group. But being a woman, he said, doesn't always work, because no matter what I do, I'm not truly one of them either. I try, but I'll never share their struggles and experience. I still feel like I'm performing in girl mode, but it's closer to me. Do you know what it's like feeling like you're wearing a costume constantly in a play that you did not sign up for? My honest answer is no. Like I don't know what that feels like. I mean, when I was young, fun fact, I was 8 years old and I kind of had a crush on Princess Leia. And for Halloween, my parents were like, what do you want to be for Halloween? I'm like, I want to be Princess Leia. And my dad's like, how about we go with the robot? I'm like, okay, robots are cool, we'll do that. But honest answer is no. Like, I don't know what it's like for swimming to be a weird dysphoric torture and for school dances to be hell. I mean, those things are just kind of fun for me. But what they need, like I said, is not just our answers and our arguments. They need our understanding. So how do we do this? How do we present charity at the same time as clarity without compromising either? I think a first step we can take is to distinguish gender theory, which is kind of a set of ideologies, from gender dysphoria, which is something individuals experience. So gender theory, this is an idea largely popularized, especially in the 1950s, with these ideas of gender roles, that masculinity, femininity, those aren't real things. Girls play with dolls because that's what we give them, and boys do this because that's what we tell them. In fact, one sociologist tried to prove this. She wanted to raise her daughter gender neutral, and so she gave her boys toys and this and that. And she gave up. She said it became so frustrating. She said every single night, my daughter insisted on tucking each of her trucks into bed one at a time. Good night, little truckie. Good night, little truckie. Like, couldn't scrub the maternal out of this kid. Even better example, Hasbro, the toy company, wanted to create a gender-neutral playhouse, okay, that boys and girls would interact with in the same way. It didn't go well. Here's what they found out. It soon emerged that girls and boys did not interact with the structure in the same way. The girls dressed the dolls, kissed them, and played house. The boys catapulted the toy baby carriage from the roof. Yeah. Hasbro manager came up with a novel explanation. Boys and girls are different. Well, you think so. But what about the girl, though, who likes the rough and tumble play? What about the boy who likes to play with dolls? Could that be an indication he's not truly a boy because of his preferences? Listen to Pope Francis. He said, I ask myself if the so-called gender theory is not at the same time an expression of frustration and resignation. It seeks to cancel out sexual difference because it no longer knows how to deal with it. We risk taking a step backwards. Removing sexual difference creates a problem, not a solution. But I think those who tried to reject sexual differences were responding. It was a reaction to these overly rigid gender stereotypes prevalent, especially in Western culture. That if you're a real man, you better be into drinking beer and shooting deer and watching NASCAR. Okay, well, give it up for that, but sorry, that's not me. NASCAR? Really? Like watching a car drive in a circle for 500 miles does nothing for me. Okay, look, I'm not a car guy. I can't even change the oil in my own pickup truck, okay? It's not me. Well, do you like drinking beer? Dude, I don't even like the taste of beer. I'd rather have a glass of red wine. Well, do you like hunting? No, like I threw a rock at a bird when I was a kid and I hit it and I still feel bad about that, okay? Like, look, I'm not this stereotypical American man. Like, dude, I'm not some like 6'5" football player. I'm a 5'6" chastity speaker. Okay, look, I don't fit the mold, but like, it's okay. I don't care. Like, I don't have to fit the mold because I know I'm a man, not because I feel so manly. I know I'm a man because I have the body of a man. And our bodies are not meaningless, they're meaningful. Again, listen to Pope Francis. He said, such rigidity can hinder the development of an individual's abilities to the point of leading him or her to think, for example, that it's not really masculine to cultivate art or dance, not very feminine to exercise leadership. I'll tell you, the most masculine man I ever met in my life, and I had the blessing of seeing him in person 24 times, was a man deeply passionate about theater and poetry and the arts. And his name was St. John Paul II. And I've never been in the presence of a more masculine man than he was. And you know what? Thanks be to God, he didn't grow up in a culture that told him if he likes theater, he's just not that much of a man. He wasn't burdened by these rigid gender stereotypes, because when young people are, it often triggers questions. And if you think about it, gender stereotypes exaggerate sexual difference. Gender theory tries to eliminate sexual difference. If you think about gender stereotypes, try to get a person to conform their personality to match their body. Gender theory tries to get a person to conform their body to match their personality. Neither option to me is the right course. I read one feminist, not Christian, but she said it well. She said, a woman is someone with a female body and any personality, not a female personality and any body. But here's the question. What about when they don't line up? What about when you got a person who's very clearly, let's say, biologically male, but their internal sense of identity is female? That can create considerable distress, which is gender dysphoria. To help you to know what that word means, think of the word euphoria. Euphoria is intense happiness. So dysphoria is the opposite, a deep discontent from a feeling of a lack of congruence between my body and my sense of self. To imagine what that would feel like, I could ask the guys in here, well, how much would I have to pay you guys to dress as the other sex for the rest of your life? Would you do it for $1,000? Most people are like, no. Okay, would you do it for $100,000? Nope. Okay, $1 million, but you got to dress like a woman for the rest of your life. And if you do this and you want the money, you got to go full send. You better be wearing a sundress on Sunday Mass. If you go to the gym, you better be wearing Lululemon pants and a crop top. Like you got to go full send on this one. Most guys be like, not happening. Not for $1 million. Why not? Why wouldn't you do it for that much money? I don't know. I'd feel inauthentic and embarrassed and awkward and not me. Okay, but what if that sense of discomfort wasn't just an outfit? What if it was your body itself? This is gender dysphoria. Now, a child experiences gender dysphoria about 80 to 90% of the time. They come to naturally identify with their biological sex, unless this gender theory and affirmative care doesn't intervene. Now, what does that look like? Well, what it looks like are the books that they just read to kids in Boston. I bought one of the books that they're reading to the kids in the schools, and it had a little cartoon image of a mom and a dad and a little baby. And it said, when a baby is born, sometimes the doctors say, it's a boy or it's a girl. But if that baby boy could speak, sometimes it would say, no, I am not. When a baby is born transgender, it means that the parents who said they were a boy or girl made a mistake. This was read to more than 480,000 kids throughout the entire state of Massachusetts, essentially telling the kids, look, if you don't feel at home in your body, your mind, your feelings are not the problem. Your body is the problem. Because look, the body does not reveal reality. Feelings reveal reality. And so if you want to be true to yourself, you should transition because you are trans, and this is the answer. And it begins with social transitioning. You change your name, your preferred pronoun, your restrooms, your sports teams. That's the social element. The next one could be puberty blockers. Now, these are drugs being given to kids as young as 8 years old to block the natural progression of puberty. Well, how do you do that? Well, you give the kids a drug such as Lupron. This is the drug given to chemically castrate male sex offenders, and they're giving it to 8-year-old kids, saying, well, this will afford you the time so you don't go through the wrong puberty. Well, look, if you don't have puberty when you should have puberty, that's a disease. It's called Kallmann syndrome. And so we're inducing a diseased state in these children whose bodies actually don't have any health problems at all. And they're being told, well, look, it's just a pause button on puberty. It's not a pause button. This is a fast forward button to cross-sex hormones. It initiates a cascade of clinical interventions. Because think about it. If I'm an 11-year-old boy and you put me on puberty blockers for 4 years, when I'm 15, do you think I'm gonna feel more masculine when all my buddies have broader shoulders, deeper voices, and a 5 o'clock shadow, and I still look like a prepubescent 11-year-old boy? I'd feel more detached from my masculine identity. Because not only does this pause puberty, it's pausing neurological development, pausing bone development. We've got 15-year-old kids now in the trans community developing osteoporosis at the age of 15. And if this isn't enough, the next stage could be cross-sex hormones. But if you go from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones, you're sterilized for the rest of your life. And to be clear, cross-sex hormones do not give you the gonads of the opposite sex. You don't develop the primary reproductive organs, you develop the secondary sex characteristics. So if the girl goes on T or testosterone, she'll have a deeper voice, an increase in facial hair, a redistribution of fat in her body, increase in musculature. But if you want to keep up the masculinized look, you will be a pharmaceutical patient for the rest of your life. If she goes on T, testosterone, her risk of heart disease quadruples. What will also happen is her uterus will need to be surgically removed within 5 years because of the increased risk of endometrial cancer. But if the chemicals aren't enough, the next step would be surgery. And there's many of them, from recontouring the forehead, to shaving the Adam's apple, to a bilateral mastectomy, top surgery, bottom surgery. One of the most common among the women is top surgery. This is now being given to girls in Oakland, California, starting at 12 years old in their children's hospital. Up in the coast in Oregon, what they found is that they changed the law now so that the age of medical consent for children is now 15. You know what that means? That means you can't get a tattoo on your ankle if you're a 20-year-old girl, but you need to wait till you're 21. You want to use a tanning salon? Can't do it till you're 18. But if you want to have a radical double mastectomy at the age of 15, you can now do that through the entire state of Oregon without your parents' knowledge or consent. And I was just there a few weeks ago, and I spoke to a girl, and her sister is about to get one of these. And she asked her sister lovingly, like, why? Why are you doing it? And her appointment is this month for the double mastectomy. So I'd ask your prayers for her. And she asked her sister, why are you doing this? And they had been abandoned by their father when they were little girls. And her sister said to her, you watch, I'm gonna be a better man than Dad ever was to us. And you hear this, and you start to realize the layers of complexity behind this, of what's going on. And so they're told, but if you have the surgery, you'll finally feel at home in your own body. But when the anesthesia wears off and the surgical dressings are removed, sometimes they look at their body in joy. Oh, I always hated my breasts. I'm glad they're gone. At other times, it spawns a new dysphoria. Well, now that my breasts are gone, my hips look too big. Maybe I need surgery on that. Other people look at their body in absolute horror. But what all have in common is about 10 years after the surgery, the suicide rate climbs to 19 times higher than the general population. And people will say, well, that's because of you transphobic bigots. If we created a more welcoming environment, they wouldn't have taken their lives. And there's some degree of merit to this social stress theory, but it's oversimplifying the matter. The real reality is that 90% of people who commit suicide have a diagnosable mental health disorder. And hormones and surgery are not the way you treat those things. This is why the biggest gender clinic in the United Kingdom was just shut down last spring. 35 of their psychologists quit because they're saying we're not being allowed to explore the deeper psychological issues. They were only given one chance to do audits on the patients. They audited 125 young people who are coming in for transitioning. And you know what they found is that 97.5% of them had comorbidities, which were other mental health issues that needed clinical intervention, from autism, depression, anxiety, OCD, a history of trauma, some of them with dissociative symptoms, where they were dissociating from their body as a trauma response, beginning to see their body as a false target of intervention. And so what's going on is that if we take this approach of treating the body to heal something of the soul and the mind, it isn't working. We're collaborating with the mental illness instead of actually treating it. And so if this isn't the answer, then what is? Because I've heard, like, if you don't affirm these individuals, you're basically abandoning them. You can accept them or you can reject them. And so what's your path? This is where the church will step in and say there's another word we can use other than accept and abandon, which is accompaniment. Walking with these people in truth and love, because they deserve respect and they deserve truth and they deserve the love. So how do we deliver this to them? Because to give someone love without giving them the truth is false compassion. It's misguided mercy. And you'll see people in the headlines now identifying as transracial and even trans age. And I could ask you, do you hate those people? You'd be like, no, I don't hate them. Then why won't you let them transition their gender or their race or their age? You'd be like, look, this is not about permission. This is about possibility. Ryan Anderson, who spoke here this weekend, said that biology is not bigotry. And what we mean by that is this is why medicine is so sex specific. Not just that women get cervical cancer and men get prostate cancer, we're susceptible to disease differently. You women are more prone to autoimmune disease, men are more prone to infectious disease. We exhibit symptoms of disease differently. You suffer a heart attack, the man will get pain radiating down his arm, pain in the chest. A woman gets a heart attack, she exhibits symptoms of shortness of breath, nausea, and pain between her shoulder blades. If you suffer a stroke, the man will take longer to recover his speech after having suffered a stroke than a woman will, because a woman uses both hemispheres of her brain to speak, whereas the man only uses the left side of his brain. That's why if you hit a man hard enough on the left side of his head, he could go completely mute. If you hit a woman there, she'll just keep right on talking. And so our sex is not something that's assigned at birth. It's something that can be recognized beforehand. It's how your organism is organized for reproduction. And there's only one of two gonads. It's either the testes or the ovaries. That's it. It's either, for the gametes, it's the sperm and the egg. That's it. There's no third, there's no fourth, there's no spectrum. There could be disorders of sexual development, but these don't constitute a third or fourth sex. Geneticists have even found more than 6,500 sex-specific genes, meaning your esophagus is male or female, your arteries are male or female. Every single cell of the human body that has a nucleus is sexed. This is why you can't change your sex. Now, some animals can. Amazing stuff. In nature, there's something called the goby fish. The habitat of fish will be predominantly females with one dominant alpha male. If you reach into the habitat and you extract the alpha male from the habitat, within 1 week, the largest remaining female will transition into a biologically male fish, capable of now reproducing with the females. If you reintroduce the alpha male fish back into the habitat, the largest female who had transitioned to male will detransition to female and once again be capable of gestating as a female. This is called sequential hermaphroditism. It's present in less than 1% of the animal kingdom, but it does exist, but it doesn't in human beings, a sexually dimorphic species that is fixed. Now, upon hearing this, a person who experiences gender dysphoria would simply say, look, I'm not arguing with any of that science. I'm not saying I'm changing my sex. I'm not saying I'm changing my chromosomes. What I'm saying is I just want to look how I feel. And is that just too much to ask? I just want to feel at home in my own body. How do we respond to this? Well, like I said, they don't just deserve to be, given the truth. They deserve to be listened to. The challenge I want to extend to you today, I want to encourage you to listen to gender dysphoria with reverent curiosity. And what that looks like is this. I was speaking at a high school in Texas, and a boy came up and told me he was trans, and we sat down, had a very pleasant conversation. Tell me about your life. Oh, I got 2 older sisters, 2 younger sisters, and you know what? He's like, they can do no wrong. My parents love them, they fawn over them, but me, I'm like the black sheep of the family. Nothing I do is ever good enough for my parents, but I got straight A's. I'm on the swim team, I do mixed martial arts, but nothing is ever good enough for them. I said, well, do you think if you were born a girl, you would have been loved the way your sisters are loved? And he said, I know I would have been. And to me, it's like, okay, well, here we are. This is actually a roadmap towards your healing. Your ache isn't to be a woman, your ache is to be loved. From there, we went to a junior high. After the talk, about 6 or 7 of the 7th grade girls came up to me, all identifying as lesbian. And they're 12 years old. And I started talking to the girls. And they were not erotically attracted to the 8th grade girls. They just thought the 8th grade boys were disgusting, which of course we know they are. And instead of shaming these girls into oblivion, what I tried to point out is they're trying to replace a story with a label. That, let me guess, your ache is to be in a relationship where you're not objectified, where you can relate to somebody on an emotionally mature level, and shocker, you're not finding it among the 13-year-old boys. But don't replace the story with this label. And so we've got, in a sense, to listen, to be the ears of Christ. A friend of mine does this well. He told me once he does evangelization in gay and lesbian bars in Chicago. And when he first told me that, I'm like, wow, you must be a real popular guy kind of bringing your catechism into a lesbian bar. And he's like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, I know, but how do you evangelize? And he said, I don't know, we just talk about the Bears and the White Sox and the Cubs. I'm like, I know, but how do you talk about God? He said, often we don't. I'm like, well, then how is that evangelization? He said, look, I've been doing this for 3 years, and he said, I have male prostitutes calling my cell phone at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're thinking about committing suicide because they know I'm a really good listener and I want to be there for them. He said, you don't always have to be the mouth of Christ. Sometimes you're just supposed to be his ears, but not only the ears of Christ, even his eyes. I was speaking recently in California, and a Filipino devout mother came up to me whose son is now in the process of transitioning, and she was heartbroken. And she said, I told my son, if you ever come over to my house and your nail polish and your mascara, I'm not even going to look at you. And I said, I want to challenge you on this. And I've been to the Philippines 5 times, so I know a little bit of Tagalog. So I used a little bit of Tagalog, and I said, think of Mama Mary, okay? That's how they speak of Our Lady. I said, think of Mama Mary. I said, Mama Mary didn't want to look at her son either when he was hanging on the cross, but she didn't take her maternal gaze of love, her eyes off of him. When they took him down off the cross and they placed this marred image of her son into her arms, Mother Mary didn't want to look at her own unrecognizable son, and her heart was pierced because all she could do is look at him with love. And I said, your son is Jesus to you right now, and now more than ever has he needed your maternal look of love. Looking at your son with love is not an affirmation of every choice that he's made. It's an affirmation that he's son, and there's nothing he could ever do to lose your love. And the mother just started weeping because she loved her son, but she couldn't recognize him anymore. And so what I want to encourage you to do is, for these individuals in your life, hold on to their hand with one hand, hold on to reality with the other hand, and don't let go of either hand. And it could create moments of tension. Well, wait a minute, I want you to refer to me this way or that way, and it can kind of create some tension. My promise to you is if you're unwilling to speak the truth to them in love, they might resent you now for the truth, but they're going to resent you for all eternity if you don't speak the truth to them in love. Because I'm telling you, a tsunami is about to hit our shores. If you ever watch a tsunami on YouTube, first thing to happen is the shoreline goes out. It's like the lowest low tide you've ever seen. And if you don't know what that means, you're likely to just walk out with it. Hey, this is cool. There's a shipwreck and a coral reef and some seashells. But if you know what that's a sign of, you head for high. You go up a hotel or up a mountain because something's about to hit shore. And right now, our whole culture, from the university, academics, to the politics, public policy, medicine, media, everything is out to sea with this transgender moment. But I'm telling you, a tsunami is about to hit shore of detransitioners. You go to websites like reddit.com, type in hashtag #DTrans. There's more than 50,000 people there screaming from the rooftops. Hit the brakes, get the kids off the puberty blockers. We tried it, it didn't work. They're not just starting activism groups, they're starting lawsuits. They're winning the lawsuits. Because think about it. Imagine if the decisions you made at the age of 13 were irreversible. It would be tragic. Like, I've seen your yearbook photos. I mean, like, what? You thought the bangs were a good idea? Like, are you serious? But the part of the brain, and they know this in psychology, the part of the brain for a teenager in charge of critical thinking is not fully developed. We see this constantly in culture. Perfect example, a friend of mine, Chris, his son Joey just graduated high school last spring. So for his senior prank, he did what any reasonable 17-year-old male would do. He just drove with his friends in a car and a trailer up to Wisconsin from Chicago, and they bought a cow on Craigslist, okay? And so they delivered the cow to the high school campus and just liberated it with a whole flock of different livestock and animals and everything, thinking that they would just graze and everyone would have a good laugh. Well, the cow would have none of it. It took off the high school campus, down the residential streets of the neighborhoods, and all the kids start chasing after it. There's a guy at his driveway getting ready for leave for work. He pulls out his cell phone to document this. There's a cow running down the sidewalk, chased by 15 high school boys with lassos and chains. And he yells out to them, "Why is there a cow running down the street?" As if he's gonna get a good answer. Now, one of the high school boys pulls up to the sidewalk and says, "Sorry, sir, sometimes these things happen," and then drives off. It's like, and so look, we don't need more examples, okay? The brain is half-baked until you're about 25 years old. But this is why Scandinavia has done a U-turn on this. Finland, Norway, Sweden can't get the puberty blockers for the kids anymore. They're backing off on this thing because they started it earlier. I mean, the Dutch, who invented the whole Dutch protocol of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormone surgery, yeah, you show up at one of their gender clinics now, "Hi, my child is non-binary and they want, puberty blockers." In Amsterdam, they'll actually tell you, "Okay, well, put your name on our list, and we got about an 18-month waiting list, and then we'll take 9 months to render a decision to see if your child is a suitable candidate for puberty blockers." And for the kid's perspective, it's like, what? 2.5 years? By the time you guys make up your mind, my puberty is gonna be over. And from the doctor's perspective, it's like, exactly. This is Amsterdam. This is Scandinavia. They have done a U-turn because they saw the writing on the wall of what we're getting hit with right now. Not just the bathroom wars, but the controversies with the sports. USA Powerlifting just lost a lawsuit that they now have to allow men who identify as women to compete in women's powerlifting sports. Do you know what this means? I looked it up. I would be the world record holder among women in my age and weight class for the deadlift because I just pulled 415 pounds a couple of months ago. And so I get the crown. Okay, this is nuts stuff. And they know it in Western Europe. They're changing the policies. But the problems are a lot bigger than sports. Prisons now. You have men identifying as gender fluid going into the women's prisons and assaulting the women, pregnancies, rapes. What do you do with the baby born in a woman's prison between two inmates? They don't know what we've created. They don't know what to do. And this is the point where I think where theology and the church can step in, not with condemnation, but with a little bit of clarity. Vatican II said, when God is forgotten, the creature itself grows unintelligible. Meaning, if we lose sight of supernatural realities, it'll come to the point we can't even see natural realities. Is our body meaningless or meaningful? And so the church's answer, I think, comes to us through the theology of the body. And some of you have heard the term but aren't familiar. It was given to us by St. John Paul II. And this guy was not only a world-class intellect, he was an incredible man. I love the guy. I mean, his personality, one of my favorite traits of him is he would sneak out of the Vatican to hang out with his friends. He actually snuck out of the Vatican more than 100 times to hang out with his friends. Even when he was in a wheelchair, he was sneaking out of the Vatican. Now, how do you pull it off? Well, he would go down in the parking garage with a black hoodie. He'd put the hoodie on, hold up a newspaper, get in a car, and they would drive off. Well, where would they go? They're skiing in the Italian Alps, okay? And the Swiss guards back home are like, have you seen the Holy Father? I don't know. He was here at Mass this morning. He's skiing. One of these times, he was going up a ski lift with a boy, and the boy on the chairlift looks over, and he's kind of looking over, and the boy finally says, look, are you the Pope? And John Paul said, yes, would you like to ski with me? And the kid's like, yeah! So up the chairlift they go, and down the slopes. They get to the bottom. The kid yells to his mom, Mom, do you know I'm skiing with the Pope? And I'm sure the mom's like, yeah, I'm having hot cocoa with Mother Teresa down here, son. But this is John Paul, down to earth. One of the things he taught us in the theology of the body is that the human body is the only creation of God that makes a person visible. Because animals have a body, but they're not a personal being. Angels are a personal being, but they don't have a body. So the human body alone makes visible the fact that you are a person. And this is clearly enough understood. If you say, look, I'm going to the store. Well, I'm willing to bet your body is going to the store, because you don't have a body like you have a pair of jeans. Your body is you. But if we untether our identity from our bodies, it has to anchor onto something. And what will your identity anchor to if not the reality of the body? It'll attach to the personality. But there are as many personalities as there are persons, and you'll end up with an endless spectrum of genders. But to me, this isn't the end game to have many genders. The end game of this ideology is to erase the spousal meaning of the body, to erase the meaning of sexual difference between man and woman. Because look, the devil is not only the enemy of your soul, the devil is the enemy of human nature. So what God has joined, he wants to separate. If God joins husband and wife, he wants divorce. God joins body and soul, he wants death. But if God has joined your body to who you are as a person, and the devil can rupture that, well then male really doesn't mean anything. And if male doesn't, neither does man, or father, or husband, or priest, or family. Everything now is thrown to the wind. And this is why John Paul II said, this generation right now, you have been given a task to rediscover the meaning of your body. That your body doesn't just reveal your identity, it reveals your mission. Look at the beauty of the differences of the bodies. Look at a woman's body. People say women are more sensitive. No, they're not. That's a stereotype. Oh, they're more sensitive. Look at the woman's ear. Women, inside your ear right now are microscopic hair cells that vibrate with a greater intensity than men's do, which amplifies your ability to hear, to distinguish nuances and inflections in the human voice that are imperceptible to the male brain. I think there's even entire conversations the male brain can't hear as well, but that's an entirely different conversation altogether. But if you've ever taught kids, have you ever noticed, you need to speak a little louder to the boys? You do. You have to speak 8 decibels louder for the male brain to register speech than a female brain. It's not a guarantee that he's listening, but he can at least hear you at that point, okay? And so with listening, oh, do the women get all the advantages? No. Typically, men are comfortable with sounds twice as loud as a woman. One way in which men far outperform the women in hearing is locating the origin of a sound in 3-dimensional space. I'm walking through the woods. I hear a branch crack 35 yards southeast. I can pinpoint the origin of a sound with greater accuracy than a woman. Men typically do a better job of blocking out ambient noise, where they've actually done brain scans of some men while reading, and they're functionally deaf, okay? And so, whereas women tend to do the opposite. They tend to be hyper-observant on an acoustic level, multitasking. I saw this with my daughter. We're having dinner at a restaurant, and it's quiet for a little bit. I'm like, honey, what are you thinking? She's like, shush. Like, what do you mean shush? We're only people at the table. Turns out she's doing audio surveillance of all the adjacent tables around us, listening to the relationship drama and conflicts and difficulties. And even couples she can't listen to. She's reading lips. She's watching body language. She's like, he likes her more than she likes him, and those two are not getting along tonight. I'm like, whoa! I could have sworn we were the only two people in that restaurant, and she's just been gathering intel the entire time in these people's personal lives. So your hearing is more sensitive. Women, your eyes are different than our eyes. Women can perceive shades of color that are imperceptible to the male eye. That's why you women come up with colors like mauve, fuchsia, chartreuse, taupe. Taupe? What is that? I just need a small box of crayons. So your eyes are more sensitive. I love this one. Your nose. Women smell better than men. Literally, they smell better than men. At the base of your brain is your olfactory bulb. You have more than 7 million more cells than men do, which amplifies your ability to smell, especially if you're ovulating or pregnant. This is why college guys, if your mom ever comes visit the dorm and she walks in and she's like, and you're like, what's the matter, Mom? And she's like, something's dead in their room. And I don't know, smells good to me, Mom. It's wash your clothes for the first time this semester. Don't just put cologne on them. And so, sensitivity of the ears, the eyes, sensitivity of the heart. John Paul said that women see with their hearts. And even from childhood, I remember seeing a study they did with boys and girls. Put a little baby in a room who's crying, and the boys and the girls were in another room. It could hear the baby crying through an intercom. And the intercom had 2 buttons. One button to speak to the baby, and the other button to shut the volume of the baby completely off. Now, you can see where this one's going. Boys walk over, girls walk over, click, hey baby, you doing okay in there? Boys walk over, problem solved. And so, to me, these sexual differences do not reveal competition, tit for tat. No. This reveals complementarity. This is why the devil is so hell-bent on getting you women to think you got to be masculinized in order to become powerful. You don't. I remember speaking to a brilliant philosopher, Dr. Alice von Hildebrand, and she said to me, Jason, yes, men have power in what they do, but she said women have power in who they are. And this is true. You don't have to fit the mold. In fact, I had lunch with a nun recently. She's a nun, okay, consecrated religious sister, and she's a doctor, and she's a surgeon, and she's a colonel in the United States Army. And I'm like, did you not feel like becoming an astronaut because you're lazy? Did you not get around to it? She was not doing these things instead of motherhood. She was mothering in and through these things. She knew her womanhood, the gift of her body, was not some box she had to fit into to conform to stereotypical norms. Her sexuality was a gift from a loving father, and she can bloom into whoever God has created her to be through this feminine identity. That's why Mother Teresa said the greatest gift of womanhood is being able to love as a woman. Don't let the world rob you of this gift and confuse you because you don't fit into these stereotypical norms. And this is why I think if God could speak to the heart of a young person or old person wrestling with gender dysphoria, the Father would say this. I think he would say, my beloved child, you were not born into the wrong body. You were born into the wrong culture. A culture that's telling you that you might have to hurt your body in order to be your authentic self. Your body does not need to be reconstructed. It is this culture that needs to be reconstructed. And I have created you perfectly for such a time as this to participate with me in the reconstruction of this broken culture. This is the call of the Father to all of us, because this is not those people with gender dysphoria and those of us who don't wrestle with our sexuality. Hey, who in this room does not wrestle with what I'm supposed to be as a man, what I'm supposed to be as a woman? Am I perfectly happy with the way God made my body? All of us wrestle in different ways in this area. And so we just have to come to God to be loved by him, because he's the only one who gets us. There's no community out there that ultimately sees the tears that fell on your pillow in the middle of the night that no one else sees. Only the Father gets you. And so come to be him, to be loved by him exactly as you are. And Mother Teresa said that he will do the rest. And to help you live out this quest of your sexuality as male and female, we've got some resources that we've brought to the conference that we just want to put on the screen now. A couple of things that you could take home with you. I spent several years creating a book on the whole subject called Male, Female, Other. Catholic Guide to Understanding Gender. And so if you're in a gender studies class at your college and your professor is like, well, there's a trans brain and because of intersex conditions this, and you don't know how to answer these things. Well, should I use the preferred pronoun, or what if I have gender dysphoria, what if my cousin does? This book walks you through how to lovingly answer all of these challenging questions. And so even if you don't experience gender dysphoria, this is something we know how to need to respond to in charity and clarity. For the women, my wife and I wrote a book called How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul. It's basically a manual on how to avoid losers, and so this is the book for the young ladies. And then people are like, where's the book for guys? I'm like, guys don't read. And then guys started bugging me, like, we're literate, and so we made one for the guys just called The Dating Blueprint that doesn't harp on everything you can't do with a woman, actually shows you what Catholic courtship is supposed to look like, the real specific stuff that we got in surveys from women all around the world. And so this is the book for the guys. And then most recently, a new book called It's Not Your Fault. A friend of mine, Joey Pontarelli, came up with this, and it's awesome because he was raised in a family where the parents got divorced. And he kind of went through a dark time of like, dude, if my parents can't figure out love, how am I supposed to figure it out? Kind of throw in the towel. But he did figure it out. And he did research, mentorship, and man, he's got a beautiful wife, beautiful family, and he kind of shows how you can come from a broken family, but build what you never have. And so all that stuff is at the booth. And then one more slide we're gonna throw up here is a QR code. And I know the two favorite words of college students are free food, okay? And so what we're doing is if you scan the QR code, we're gonna do a raffle at about 5 o'clock through the phone, and we'll take you and a friend of yours to dinner. So we're gonna take 3 people with 3 of their friends, go have barbecue at that Spitfire, Sugar, whatever barbecue place up the street at 7:15 tonight. So if you scan the thing before you leave or go by our booth and scan it, not only will it get possibly a free dinner, we got these different ebooks on dating relationships, on how to divorce-proof a marriage, on John Paul II. You'll get all that stuff for free through the QR code. But in the meantime, I'm gonna be over at our booth, except for that dinner, for the rest of the night. And so if anyone needs to talk, needs some advice, or just needs somebody to listen, I'm gonna be camped out right at our booth for the rest of the night to be available to you guys. I've been there all day hearing confessions. I absolved nobody yet, but I've given a lot of penance out. And so God bless you guys. I love you guys, and I'll see you at the booth. So thank you very much. Thank you guys very much.